No one likes a recession, but in this video, I'm going to share with you 7 steps I'm taking in order to prepare for the recession ahead. A recession doesn't have to be a negative event, and I'm planning by taking these 7 steps to be better prepared for whatever financial events lie ahead. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, then just keep watching. The idea for this video comes from a comment that was left by Steve S. And Steve says this: "You must always be making your efforts during the good years, which are about 90% of the years. Financial freedom will make you recession-proof as well." Food for a video maybe, this is a channel, love it. So thank you for the compliment, Steve, and also for the video idea. It's absolutely a great topic. So let's start out with a definition. A recession is essentially a period of declining economic performance across an entire economy that lasts for several months. Economic activity has fallen, interest rates have risen, and there's high unemployment. These are the general factors that make up a recession. The last significant recession we saw here in the US was probably around 2008, when the housing market collapsed and took everything else with it. Around this time, I was looking for my first job out of college, and it was very difficult to find any work because unemployment was so high. I am a firm believer that you can take advantage of absolutely any market conditions. So in hindsight and looking forward, these are some of the things I wish I had done to be recession-proof, and these are the things that I'm doing right now to become recession-proof even further. Step 1 is to take stock of what you already have. So this encompasses your assets, your liabilities, your income, and your outgo, or your expenses. So those 4 things. The reason why I say it's critical in the first step to take stock of what you have is because you can't be better prepared if you don't know where you are already. It's like a farmer taking stock of their crops and their holdings before they start planning for the next season. So the most important first step you can take is to know the following. Know your expenses on a monthly basis. How much are you putting out for basic housing expenses, food, any additional expenses? Be very clear in how much it costs you to live on a monthly basis. The second thing you should know is how much is coming in. What is your income? List all your sources of income and be clear on how much you have coming in. Don't make any judgments on the outgo or the income. Just get those numbers down on paper. Third thing you should know is what debts do you have? List them all. The fourth thing is to know what assets you have. So if you have savings accounts, IRAs, checking accounts, everything that you have, make a list of that as well. Just completing the step of taking stock of your financial situation will give you a huge amount of clarity. Clarity is very important as you look to recession-proof your life. Step 2 is to build an emergency fund. You Dave Ramsey followers out there know that Dave recommends an emergency fund of only $1,000 while you're getting out of debt. But when preparing for a recession, I say the emergency fund comes first. My recommendation is to build up that 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses first before even looking at debt. Because in an emergency, in a recession, if job loss hits, if you're debt-free with no cash, you're still going to be in trouble. Whereas if you face a job loss but still have 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund, you will be in a much stronger day-to-day position than if you had no emergency fund. You are also able to potentially negotiate lower payments on debt or defer payments entirely while the job loss situation recovers. And I want to be very clear in saying that the ideal is still to be 100% consumer debt free. However, when preparing for a recession and looking to recession-proof your financial life, I put the emergency fund before paying off any debt. So step number 2 is to build up as much of an emergency fund as possible. Step number 3 to prepare for a recession is to reduce your debt. So by that, I mean this. Do not go $1 further into consumer debt. The goal is to be 100% consumer debt free. And if you have the additional income to be able to do that, if you're still sitting on high interest consumer debt, you should pay that off immediately. I have a video on how I got rid of $17,000 of credit card debt in 2.5 years during a recession. So it is possible. As a way to further reduce your debt, I would suggest calling each of your loan holders or credit cards and requesting a lower interest rate. In addition addition, there are several programs that may be available to help you deal with any large amounts of debt. But like I mentioned in step number 2, if you're facing paying off consumer debt over saving in an emergency fund, I would prioritize saving in an emergency fund as you're preparing for a recession. Step number 4 to prepare for a recession is to cut costs wherever possible. This is probably what comes to mind most frequently when speaking about preparing for a recession, because most everyone's familiar with the idea of cutting costs. The Great Depression of the 1920s is famously the origin of several extreme but effective cost-cutting techniques. So great ingenuity in cutting costs is born during recessions. However, if you are already living on a very tight budget to begin with, if your expenses are already very minimal, in order to recession-proof your life, I suggest maybe giving them one more look, looking over them one more time, and seeing if there are any additional ways you can cut costs. Maybe make it a game to see how much you can save, and then simply move on. Step number 5 to prepare for a recession is to increase your savings rate and to be very mindful about your savings. So whereas step 2 was to increase your emergency fund, step 5 is thinking very clearly about your savings. So in particular, in regard to any large purchases you may have coming up or some large discretionary expenses, things that aren't necessarily a necessity, I would see if you can hold off on those purchases for a period of time in order to preserve your savings for an upcoming recession. Step number 6 to prepare for a recession is to diversify your income. That means having more than one stream of money coming into your bank account. That way you can begin to spread out your reliance on different income sources and not be relying on one source of income that may potentially dry up, especially when facing a recession. Now might be the perfect time to start that side hustle or to explore other ways that you can bring money into your bank account. The average millionaire has 7 different sources of income, so this means that you're not relying on one single source of income, and this way you are better able to face potential financial uncertainty the more and varied sources of income you have. Step number 7 in how to prepare for a recession is to be prepared to take advantage of unique opportunities. So in a recession, when we see high interest rates, low economic output, activity, and performance, and high unemployment rates, new opportunities may emerge that might not have existed in the pre-recession economy. So by be prepared, I mean be on the lookout for opportunities that may emerge that might not have existed in pre-recession times. Look at industries that tend to be very strong during recessions and be prepared to take advantage of those opportunities. So this story comes from my mom's dad, so my grandfather on my mom's side, and he worked in the oil industry in Michigan, and he used to always tell my mom just to show up, to show the bosses and the people above you that you are prepared and ready to work. And he would find himself between jobs, or if a job would end, he would still get up, get dressed, and be prepared and ready to work. So because he was ready to work and prepared to take advantage of new opportunities, he very rarely found himself without work. So as a recession is potentially on the horizon, as you prepare for a recession, look to prepare for new opportunities that might not have existed previously. These are the 7 ways that I am preparing for a recession. And while there's no way to be 100% secure, I hope that these steps will help you in your process to prepare for a recession. So thank you so much, as always, for watching, and I hope that you'll keep watching. Bye.